Good morning, my awesome Niners. Right, buddies, today we get to keep practicing change of subject, which I hope that you guys are enjoying. I know it's a really tricky topic. It's difficult for kids to get their head around it the very first time that they've seen it. So usually my strategy, which is the exact strategy I've done with you, is to teach loads and loads of it in the first lesson, and then just give you guys tons of time to practice all of those skills and to get some practice in to see, just basically to see if you can do it or not, to make sure that you get lots of chance to ask questions and to practice. And so that's exactly what we're doing here. Right, buddies? So today's lesson is just another practice lesson for you. And here's how we're going to lay it out. So first things first is you're going to put the title, Even More Change of Subject Fun. And I've got 6 questions to try. Now, the bottom 2 are nightmare questions, pretty much harder than year 9 level, but you still could do them, and I think that we'll have a go at doing them. But yeah, it's just going to be 6 questions today, so this is going to be a short video, but we have to do it in a really careful manner. And here's how I want you to do it, every single one the same way of these 6. What you should do is as soon as I finish giving the instruction, I will say when to go. As soon as I finish giving the instruction, you should pause the video and you should try the whole question. Now, you then can skip forward ahead and you can see if you got the right answer or not, okay? You'll know that I'm done the question because I'll put a square around my answer at the very bottom, and you'll know that that's the answer to the question, okay? And you can see if yours matches or not. Now, if you didn't get it right, you should go back like a little bit and actually watch me work it out, and listen to me when I'm explaining how I've worked it out, and then that way you'll see that if yours hasn't gone right, you'll see where it hasn't gone right, and that should really help. And so that's what my goal is today, my buddies. That's what we're going to do. So are you excited? Good, I'm excited. Okay, so the first one, jot this down. X equals 4y take away 10. And we want y to be the subject. Cool? If you know what you're doing, pause, go. Okay, and if you're with me, let's do it. Here's what you're going to do, buddies. We want y to be the subject, but what we've got is it's touching the 4, so it's with its mate, the 4. What doesn't belong? Well, the minus 10, so you can block this off even if you want. I think I won't in this video, though, because I think you guys are getting past that stage now. So 4y is there, but the minus 10 needs to go. So what do? I do plus 10 on both sides. Plus 10, plus 10. Because now then, on this side, I have x plus 10, and on this side, I've just got my 4y. Cool? Because the minus 10 and the plus 10 equals 0 when you put them together. Cool. Well, what do I do next? I want to get y by itself, but it's touched by the 4. It's multiplied by 4. So what do we do to stop it being multiplied by 4? That's it. You divide it by 4. The whole of both sides by 4. Because then you get to go... Because if you times something by 4 and then divide it by 4, it's the same as not doing anything at all. So that just leaves y. So the final answer to this question is just y equals x plus 10 all over 4 and a square around it. Can you see how I did that, my buddies? Cool. Right. Now, on the next one then, let's see. So if you've come back to me right now, get ready to pause on the second one, and let's do it. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, and you're back, my lovelies. Let's see how we've got on. A little bit harder this time because it's all on a fraction. It's preventing us from doing minus 6, which is always what you want to do, but the fraction's making it awkward. So what can I do to get rid of the fraction first thing because the fraction's awkward? Well, if you said times both sides by 5, you're absolutely right, because you can go like that, and then what you know is that 5 times x is just going to be 5x. And on this side, the fraction's gone because we drew a line through the denominator and through the thing that we times by. So we're just left with 3y plus 6. Starting to look a bit more normal now. So what's the next step? Well, I want y, and it's with its mate, the 3. Who doesn't belong? The plus 6. Opposite of plus 6? Take 6 off both sides. So 5x take 6 equals 3y. And you're on the final step now. Remember what it is? It's 3 times y. So what you're going to do is you're going to divide both sides by the 3. Because you got to go, and then you're left with just this. Y equals 5x take 6 all over 3 in a square. Final answer. Really important, my buddies, that you are not drawing these all on one line. They should be written downward, just like how I've written them. Okay, harder now, okay? So we're going into tier 2. It sounds like COVID, oh gosh. Yeah, we're going into tier 2 in terms of difficulty here, my buddies. Let's do it. Okay, I want y. Okay, so basically, same pattern as before. I want you to try it first. Don't watch me. If you've not tried it yet, don't watch me. You try it first, then you can watch me. Pause. Go. Okay, and you're back. Now, here we go. Y over 5 take away 6. Now, there's the y, but it's been divided by 5. Even though they're kind of touching each other because they're in a fraction together, so I can still clearly see that the minus 6 doesn't belong. So, plus 6 plus 6. So on the left-hand side, buddies, 5x plus 6. And on the right-hand side is our y over 5. Now, a little bit different this time, my folks, a little bit different here. And the reason why it's different is y has been divided by 5. How do we get y on its own? Well, if you said times both sides by 5, you're right. Now, I'm going to show you both ways of doing this. So times 5. Here's what you're actually doing. You're doing a 5 and an open bracket there, because that's how you times by 5. Now, I find that that muddles people. So watch this. I'm going to erase it. And what I'm going to do, so this is actually what you're doing. Okay, this is the actual maths, but watch the shortcut. See how we times that by 5? Every single term needs to be times by 5, which means this needs to be times by 5 and that needs to be times by 5. A term is anything that's separated by a plus or minus. So this question has 1 term, 2 terms, and 3 terms. Cool? So on the left-hand side, what do we got? Well, 5x times 5 is 25x. 6 times 5 is 30. And on this side, we get to go, and you're going to just be left with y, which is actually the final answer. I'm going to write it the other way now. 25x plus 30. Like an absolute boss. Cool beans, buddies? Okay. I would say this is the last question that is as hard as year 9 should go, okay? This question D is as hard as year 9 should go. I can throw a square root in at you. I can throw a squared in at you. But in terms of straight up algebra, this question D is the hardest. Okay, so starting off with, buddies, pause and try it. If you've not tried yet, pause, go. And if you have tried it, here we go. I hope this is what you did. You look for the y, it's there, it's with the plus 4, but the whole thing's in a fraction, so I need to get rid of that fraction. How do you get rid of a fraction that's divided by 5? Well, you times it by 5, because that's going to cancel it out. Now, what do we times by 5? Every single term, and a term is something that's separated by plus or minus. So we'll times 5 here, and we'll times 5 here also, and then that means that we're going to get oops, wrong color. That means that we're going to get 15x, take away 10 on that side, these cancel, and you're going to be left with just 8y plus 4. Cool, what's next? Well, that's it. Get rid of the plus 4. Minus 4, minus 4. Off of both sides, okay? Now, it's actually a like term with the minus 10, so that makes a change for us. That's a result. So 15x, that's minus 10 minus 4 more is minus 14. Go beans. And on this side then, what we're going to be left with is just simply the 8y. So to get y on its own, just like, oops, oh green, I didn't want green. Just like before, divide by 8, and you get to cancel out, and you're just going to be left with y equals 15x, take 14, all over 8 as a final answer. So if you can do that, you're clobbering the year 9 level. Okay, E, I made ridiculously hard on purpose, but because you've done C and D, even though E is well hard, it's not even got a number in it, I've only used letters, even though it's so well hard, well, I want Y to be the subject as well, I should say, Y the subject, even though it's well hard, you can still do it using your same knowledge. So, have a look, get ready, push pause, and solve it. Go. Okay, now that you're back, here's what you should have said. You should have said the y is there with the c, and there's a plus d, and it's over e, so there's tons of letters everywhere. But one letter stands out on its own as not being as part of this fraction, and that's the plus f. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away the f from both sides, because then you're going to get ax plus b minus f. And on this side, it's just now the fraction. Okay, now what do we got to do next? Well, I want y, but the whole fraction needs to go first. So it's just like this last one. The whole fraction needs to go. So what am I going to times both sides by to get rid of the fraction? Well, by the bottom. So by e. Cool? Now we're going to times every single term by e, because when you're multiplying the whole of both sides. You're not just timesing one thing by e, you're timesing the whole of both sides by e. So if you times this by e, you're going to go times e, times e, times e, because those are 1, 2, 3 terms, because each one is separated by either a plus or minus. We have 1, 2, 3 terms, and that's it. So what do we got here? Well, I'm going to put them in alphabetical order too. So I'm going to have AEX plus BE minus EF equals, and this is going to go, so just CY plus D. Now what, buddies? Our letter nightmare question's working. Well, why is there? If you said what doesn't belong, well, what doesn't belong? That's it, it's the plus D, so take D. Take D, take D. You're going to be left with AEX plus BE minus EF minus D equaling CY. Oh, we're one step from clobbering it, my buddies. Final step then. I want Y, but it's been times by C. Do I take C or do I divide C? If you said divide, you're right. Divide C, divide C. Y equals AEX plus BE, take EF, take D, all over C, and by God, if you can do that, you're certainly doing algebra, because that's not even got a single number in it, buddies. That's amazing. Oh, I hope it's good. Okay, F's not as hard as E, but it is got a trick to it. So you ready? Go, try it. And you're back. Let's see how you got on. First things first, you look for the y. It's there, it's squared, it's got a 4, and it's got a minus 3. So it's in a fraction, though, unfortunately. That's got to go. We can't be having this in a fraction. We can't move stuff if there's a fraction. So times 5, and we're going to times every term by 5. So times 5 and times 5, okay? So the fraction as a term has got times by 5, and these two guys on their own are times by 5. So what are we left with here? Well, 30x. And here, minus 10. On this side, we're left with 4y squared take 3. What's next? If you said, get rid of that minus 3, you're right. Plus 3 plus 3. Yeah, ready? 30x, take away 7, equals just 4y squared. Cool, 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 cool. Now, final one, nearly final step. We have 4y squared. Now, I know that your hearts are all screaming, square root, but you can't square root yet, my buddies. What do you have to do before you can square root? That's it. You got to get the y squared on its own first. So we need the y squared to be by itself before we start unlocking its squaredness, before we start square rooting. So you're going to then be left with, I'm going to put the y squared on the left, just because I want the letter left for some reason. My heart wants it left. Y squared equals 30x, take away 7, all over 4. Final step, buddies. How do you unsquare something? Well, square root, you've got it. So y equals a big tall square root, 30x minus 7, all over 4, as a final answer, all the way up to GCSE. Put a square around it, absolutely like that, like an absolute boss. That is your absolute final answer. If you got that right, give yourself full marks, full marks. And I'm going to throw a little spanner in the works. It's plus or minus, which you'll learn about when you get to A level. It's plus or minus because there's two ways of squaring, well, say it was an easy question. It's funny. You don't have to worry about that, okay? If you didn't put that, that's okay. Yeah, you'll learn more about that a bit later on when you're older than year 9. Like, that's just something a bit later on in maths. But I'm just going to show you quick, just for your own interests. Say that you had this. Say that you had y squared is equal to 25. Well, what would y equal? What would be a number that you could put into y squared and make 25? Well, yeah, 5, right? Because 5 squared is 25. But is there another number? What other number could you square and get 25? Yeah, minus 5 too. Because minus 5 times minus 5 and minus times a minus makes a plus, and 5 times 5 makes 25. So actually, all of these questions which have a squared on the end, you put a plus or minus there. But to be honest, don't worry about that. I was just getting a bit carried away when I was making you guys a hard question. So if you didn't put it, it's okay. If you did put it, that's amazing. You're like A level now, so that's super duper. Cool. Right then, buddies, so that's it for my video and for your practice. Here's what I'm going to get you to do. It's a Tarsia, everyone's favorite thing. It's not super hard though, okay? So I've attached it. You should print it off and try to build it and take a picture of it built for me. If you don't have a printer or you don't want to build it, that's also okay. Here's how you're going to do it. Any question that has not got y as the subject is a question. Any question that does have that has x as the subject is a question. You want y to be the subject. So that's a question, but that's an answer, but that's a question because x is the subject. And that's a question because x is the subject. And that's a question because x is the subject. See what I mean? And that's a question. And that's a question. And that's a question. And that's not. That's an answer. That's a question. That's an answer. That's a question. See how I'm doing it, my buddies? If x is the subject, it's a question. So all of those ones are questions. Got it? And there's others as well. Should I just do them all? Yeah, go on. There you go. That's one. That's a question. That's a question. Anything that's got x as the subject is a question. Cool. Yeah, have I got them all yet? This is fun going through and colouring them. I like it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, okay, good. I got them all now, I think. Okay, now here's what I'm going to get you to do. If you don't want to cut it out, if you don't want to build the Tarsia, that's okay. I think building the Tarsia is probably more fun than not building the Tarsia, though. But here's what I need you to do. I need you to show me minimal steps, okay? So you don't have to be quite as thorough as the last stuff, but as the last question, but you can't just do no steps. So say I was going to do this one, okay? Because this is printed out in A4, it's actually big, so I'm going to zoom in to make the illusion of bigness. Okay, there you go. So you have tons of room to write on it if you print it out if you just print it out, my buddies. So here's what I'd write, like on the question itself, I'd write times 3, then I'd be like, y take away 5 equals 3x, and then I'd be like, y equals 3x plus 5, and that'd be my answer, and I'd put it on the little thing just right next to it, like I wouldn't go out of my way making it like all super neat or anything. I would just try to get the answer, 3x plus 5, find it somewhere else, which it'll be somewhere. Where is it? It's somewhere. 3x plus, oh, there it is. So that one pairs up with that. Then those two edges go together. Cool beans, buddies. But if you want to just do it like a worksheet, I don't mind. You can do it like a worksheet too if you want. You can write them in your book if you want. Do whatever you like. Okay, buddies? Just as long as you practice. Right then. So I guess that when you're all done, send a picture to me. I hope that you feel absolutely boss at change of subject. And that's it for me. Bye, buddies!